The fluorescent lights of Patterson Hardware hummed their eternal song overhead as Marcus Donovan ran his calloused palm along a 2x4, checking for warp the way his father had taught him 30 years ago. The grain told stories if you knew how to listen. This one straight and true, perfect for the platform he'd been building since June. Sawdust clung to his Carhartt work pants, the kind of honest dirt that came from actual labor, not a corporate desk. Emma tugged his sleeve, 8 years of boundless energy packed into 60 pounds of auburn-haired determination. Her mother's coloring, his stubborn chin. "Dad, I found the purple paint. Can we use it for the trim?" Marcus glanced at his daughter, fighting the smile that always won when she lit up like this. The treehouse had been their project since spring, something to fill the silence that still echoed through rooms where Sarah's laughter used to live. 2 years since cancer took her. 730 days of learning to be both parents at once. Purple might clash with the cedar, kiddo, but we'll take a look. Emma bounced toward the paint aisle, her sneakers squeaking on the concrete floor. Marcus turned back to his measurements, pencil behind his ear, the phoenix tattoo on his left wrist catching afternoon light through the high windows. He tugged his sleeve down out of habit. Some marks weren't meant for casual explanation, especially not to third graders asking uncomfortable questions at school. The design had been sketched on a coffee shop napkin when he was 26 and stupid enough to believe matching tattoos meant forever. Victoria's idea, two phoenixes learning to fly together. Wings spread despite the breaks. They'd gotten them inked the same day, drunk on cheap wine and cheaper promises about conquering distance and ambition. Then she'd left for New York with a gallery position she couldn't refuse and assurances that dissolved like sugar in rain. 3 weeks later, she'd stopped answering calls, blocked his number, vanished so completely it was like she'd never existed beyond the mark on his skin. Marcus had done what people do. He'd grieved, moved on, met Sarah at a woodworking exhibition where she'd spent 3 hours asking intelligent questions about dovetail joints. She'd been steady where Victoria was storm, present where Victoria was always half gone. They'd built something real, a daughter, a home, 6 years of the kind of love that didn't need dramatics to prove itself. The memory of Sarah's last months still cut deep. The way she'd refused bitterness even when her body betrayed her. How she'd made him promise to keep living after she was gone. To not let grief turn him into a ghost haunting his own house. He'd kept that promise mostly. Got up every morning, fed Emma, ran the shop. Built things with his hands, because that's what Donovan men did. They made something useful from raw materials. Something that lasted. Marcus marked the board with a carpenter's pencil, muscle memory guiding the line straight and true. The hardware store's familiar smells wrapped around him. Fresh lumber, motor oil, the metallic tang of new tools. Safe territory, predictable. A small voice cut through the ambient noise of shopping carts and overhead announcements. Clear and curious in a way that made the back of his neck prickle. "Excuse me, sir. My mother has a tattoo just like yours." The world narrowed to a pinpoint. The pencil slipped from Marcus's fingers. The box of deck screws he'd been holding hit the floor, ball bearings scattering across concrete in a sound like his thoughts breaking apart. He turned slowly, the way you move when you're not sure you want to see what's behind you. A girl stood 3 feet away, maybe 9 years old, in a navy dress with a white Peter Pan collar that screamed private school and trust funds. Patent leather shoes caught the fluorescent light. A velvet headband held back dark curls that escaped in careful disarray, the kind of styled imperfection that cost money to achieve. But her eyes, God, her eyes were the exact shape as the ones he shaved past every morning. Not the color, hers were brown where his were hazel, but the architecture underneath. The way they tilted slightly at the outer corners. The directness of her gaze, like she'd already decided he was safe enough to approach. She pointed at his wrist where his sleeve had ridden up during the motion of turning. Her finger, small and precise, aimed directly at the phoenix. The bird with the broken wing that learned to fly. My mother has the same one on her shoulder. She never shows anyone, but I saw it once when she was changing. She told me it was from a long time ago, from someone important. Marcus's brain scrambled to process the impossible. The tattoo wasn't from any shop pattern book. It was original, drawn by two people who thought they were building something permanent. Only two existed in the world. his and hers. The girl tilted her head, waiting for a response he couldn't form. She had the careful posture a mom when taught that presentation mattered. Shoulders back, chin level. But underneath the polish, something vulnerable leaked through, the universal look of childhood loneliness that transcended tax brackets. Emma appeared at his elbow, curiosity overriding stranger danger. "Hi, I'm Emma. That's a really pretty dress. Do you go to St. Catherine's?" The girl's attention shifted, her formal composure cracking slightly. "I'm Lily. I go to Riverside Academy. We don't have recess anymore. They call it structured outdoor time." Emma wrinkled her nose. "That sounds boring. We have actual recess, with swings and everything." Someone dropped a paint can 3 aisles over, the clatter sharp in the Cathedral of Commerce and weekend projects. Marcus felt time slow down in that peculiar way it does before everything changes. Like the moment between lightning and thunder, when you know the strike is coming, but haven't felt it yet. Footsteps approached, rapid and urgent. Expensive heels clicked in unmistakable rhythm against linoleum. Sharp, precise, the sound of someone who'd learned to move with purpose through rooms full of people who measured worth in zeros. "Lily! Lily, where did you—" The voice cut off mid-sentence. Marcus knew it before he turned. Some sounds burrow into your bones and wait there dormant until circumstance resurrects them. He'd spent a decade bearing this particular frequency, and now it rose from the grave fully formed, dragging every memory he'd thought safely dead. He turned slowly, each degree of rotation an exercise in controlled demolition. 10 years had refined Victoria's sharp edges into something almost dangerous. The ratty art student with paint-stained fingers had become a woman in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his truck's last service. Her dark hair, once long enough to tangle in his fingers, was cut in a severe bob that framed cheekbones he traced with reverent hands in a different lifetime. But her eyes hadn't changed. Still that particular shade of gray that reminded him of October skies before rain, the kind of weather that made you want to stay inside with someone warm. Right now, those eyes were wide with something between recognition and terror, trapped in the moment where past and present collided with the force of inevitability. Marcus. His name left her lips like a confession, like a curse, like the final word of a prayer she'd been reciting for a decade without knowing how it ended. Victoria. Tasting her name after 10 years of not speaking it felt like touching a scar that had never properly healed. The air between them turned thick and hard to breathe, charged with everything they'd done to each other in the name of love and self-preservation. Emma pressed closer to his side, confused by the tension she could sense but not name. Lily looked between them, her small face creased with the kind of worry children get when they sense adult complications beyond their comprehension. Victoria recovered first, features smoothing into a mask of polite distance that probably served her well in boardrooms and charity galas. "I apologize. Lily, we need to leave now." But Lily was looking at the tattoo again, then at her mother, then back to Marcus, with the dawning wonder of a child piecing together a puzzle adults thought they'd hidden. "Is he the one from your story? The one about the phoenix who found another phoenix and they learned to fly together before the storm came?" Victoria's face went pale under her expensive foundation. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest, a structural failure he couldn't name. What story? But Victoria was already taking Lily's hand, already turning toward the exit with the desperate grace of someone fleeing a crime scene. "I'm sorry, we have to go. I'm sorry." She moved toward the door, pulling Lily along, but the girl looked back over her shoulder. Marcus saw it clearly now in the afternoon light. The shape of her nose was his, the way her eyebrows arched when she was curious, the stubborn set of her jaw that he recognized from every mirror he'd ever faced. Emma's voice was small beside him. "Dad, who was that lady? Why did she run away?" Marcus couldn't answer. He was too busy calculating months, counting backward, remembering the last night he'd spent with Victoria before she disappeared. The hotel room neither of them could really afford, rain against windows, promises they'd made about calling, about making it work despite the distance, about love being enough. 9 months. Lily was 9 years old. The math was simple. The implications were apocalyptic. Marcus moved through the next 3 days in a fog thick enough to drown in. His hands performed familiar tasks, measuring, cutting, sanding, while his mind spun in useless circles that led nowhere but back to that moment in the hardware store. The way Victoria had looked at him, not with the hatred of an ex-lover or the indifference of true distance, but with something that looked remarkably like grief, mixed with fear. And Lily, sweet, careful Lily with her private school posture and her mother's eyes and his jawline, asking about Phoenix's learning to fly. The custom cabinet project he'd promised for the Henderson renovation kept defeating him. Measurements he could normally make in his sleep came out wrong twice, then 3 times. Dave, his 60-year-old shop assistant, who'd worked with Marcus's father before him, finally set down his router and crossed his arms. "You gonna tell me what's eating you, or we gonna keep wasting good walnut until you get your head straight?" Marcus stared at the board he'd just cut a 1/4 inch short. In 15 years of professional woodworking, he'd never made such a careless mistake. "Just tired." Dave's expression said he didn't believe it for a second, but he'd been around enough to know when to push and when to let a man work through his own demons. Tired doesn't make you measure twice and cut wrong. But it's your call. The problem was the not knowing. If Lily was his daughter and every cell in his body screamed that she was, why had Victoria kept it secret? Why disappear completely instead of telling him? He'd loved her once, loved her with the kind of intensity that feels like drowning and flying simultaneously. When she left for that prestigious position, he'd offered to follow. She'd said no, said his life was here, his family's business was here. She couldn't ask him to abandon roots that ran 3 generations deep. 3 weeks later, the silence, complete and absolute, like she'd been erased from existence. He'd grieved, he'd moved on. He'd met Sarah and built something real, something that lasted until cancer decided 6 years was enough. Now this, Monday night found him alone in the workshop after Emma had gone to bed, sitting on the floor with an unfinished drawer in his lap, and tears he hadn't realized he was crying, sliding down his face. The smell of cedar and old varnish wrapped around him, familiar as breathing. The door creaked. Emma stood in her pajamas, 8 years old and already wise enough to know when silence was the only gift that mattered. She climbed into his lap without asking, fitting herself against his chest the way she had since she was small enough to cradle in one arm. They sat like that for a long time, his arms around his daughter, while the weight of another daughter, a daughter he'd never known existed, pressed down on him with the force of lost years and stolen moments. Finally, Emma spoke. "I like that girl, Lily. She seemed lonely." Marcus's throat was too tight for words. He just nodded against her hair. "Do you think we'll see her again?" The question hung in the air between hope and heartbreak. "I don't know, baby." Emma leaned back to look at him, her green eyes, Sarah's eyes, serious in a way that made her look older than 8. "I hope so. I've always wanted a sister." The words hit him like a physical blow. He had to close his eyes against the surge of emotion, against the impossible truth that Emma couldn't know but somehow sensed anyway. Children had a way of seeing what adults tried to hide, and Emma had always been particularly perceptive. "Life doesn't always give us what we want, kiddo." Emma settled back against his chest, her voice thoughtful in the darkness. "Mommy used to say that sometimes life gives us what we need instead, but we have to be brave enough to see it." Marcus held his daughter tighter, Sarah's wisdom coming back through Emma's voice like a message from beyond the grave. Maybe his late wife had known something he didn't. Maybe she'd known all along that the past never stays buried, no matter how deep you dig. The discovery came accidentally on Saturday morning. Marcus was at the farmer's market with Emma, buying heirloom tomatoes for the sauce Sarah had taught him to make. The one recipe he'd managed to master after her death because it felt like keeping a piece of her alive. Emma examined the vegetables with the seriousness of a professional chef, which made the vendor smile. She'd inherited her mother's attention to detail, the ability to spot quality that most people missed. "Dad, how do you know which ones are ripe?" Marcus picked up a Cherokee Purple, feeling its weight, checking the give near the stem. "You look for even color, no soft spots. Feel the weight, should be heavy for its size. And smell here, near the top. Should smell like summer, like earth and sunshine." Emma pressed her nose to a tomato and grinned. "It does smell like summer." Marcus ruffled her hair, grateful for these simple moments that felt almost normal. Then he saw her, Victoria, in jeans and a simple white shirt that probably still cost more than his entire outfit, examining vegetables with the same intense focus she used to apply to her paintings. No Lily in sight, just Victoria, alone in the Saturday morning crowd, looking almost human instead of the polished CEO from the hardware store. Marcus's feet were moving before his brain caught up. Emma, go look at those pastries for a second, okay? Pick one out for later. He pressed a $10 bill into her hand and watched her bounce toward the bakery stall before turning back to where Victoria stood frozen by the tomatoes, her eyes closed like she was praying for a different outcome. We need to talk. Victoria's eyes opened. The grief in them was old, calcified into something permanent. There's nothing to talk about. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she placed a tomato back in its basket. Marcus, please just let this go. The words came out sharper than he intended, and an elderly woman at the next stall glanced over with interest. Let it go? Victoria, she looks exactly like me. Exactly. And you run away the second we meet. You don't think I deserve an explanation? Victoria's face was a mask, but he saw the muscles in her jaw working. The tell she'd always had when trying not to cry. What do you want me to say? Marcus wanted to grab her shoulders, shake her, make her look at him properly. Instead, he kept his hands at his sides, fisted so tight his nails bit into palms. I want you to tell me the truth. Is Lily mine? The question hung between them like smoke. For a moment, Marcus thought she might actually answer. Then her expression shuddered completely, and when she spoke, her voice carried the flat affect of someone reciting lines. No, she's not. And even if she were, what difference would it make? You have your life, Marcus. I have mine. We're strangers who happen to shop at the same farmer's market, that's all. She moved to walk past him, but Marcus stepped into her path, desperate now. The tattoo, Victoria. Lily knows about the tattoo. She told me you told her a story about phoenixes learning to fly together. Something cracked in Victoria's facade just for a second, a flash of such raw pain that Marcus physically felt it. I need you to leave us alone. Her voice was breaking now, the careful control dissolving. Please, Marcus, I'm begging you. You don't understand what's at stake here. Before he could respond, Emma's voice rang out bright and clear. Dad! Dad, look who I found! Marcus's heart stopped. Emma was walking toward them, hand in hand with Lily, both girls carrying paper bags of pastries and wearing matching grins that spoke of instant friendship and the kind of recognition that happens when souls know each other before brains catch up. Lily, I can't believe you're here, Mrs. Brennan brought her to get bread. Can she come play at our house, please? Lily was looking up at Victoria with such hopeful eyes that Marcus felt his chest constrict. Mother, can I? Emma says they're building a treehouse and I could help. Victoria looked between the two girls and Marcus watched 10 years of carefully constructed walls crumble in real time. Her shoulders sagged, or her breath came shorter. When she met his eyes, he saw surrender there, mixed with terror and something that might have been relief. 1 hour. You can visit for 1 hour, and then Mrs. Brennan comes to get you. Lily let out a whoop of delight that sounded so much like Emma, it was almost painful. As the girls ran ahead toward Marcus's truck, chattering about tree houses and whether pink or purple paint was better, Victoria grabbed his arm. Her fingers were cold, even in the warm morning. Marcus, She stopped, swallowed hard, tried again. There are things you don't know, things I can't explain. But please be careful with her. She's fragile, more than she seems. Marcus studied her face, seeing the shadows under her eyes, the fine lines that hadn't been there a decade ago, the weight of secrets that had carved themselves into her features. I need to know the truth, Victoria. Whatever it is, whatever happened, I need to know. She held his gaze for a long moment. He saw her warring with herself, saw the moment she made a decision. She pulled out a business card, thick, expensive cardstock that read Victoria Ashford, CEO, Ashford Foundation, and wrote an address on the back. 8 o'clock tonight. Come alone. I'll tell you everything. The hour with the girls was simultaneously wonderful and agonizing. Emma and Lily clicked immediately, their laughter filling the backyard as they helped Marcus measure lumber for the treehouse platform he had been building since spring. The structure was already taking shape. A solid deck 12 feet up in the old oak, rope ladder dangling, pulley system for lifting supplies. Lily had clearly never used a hammer before, but she approached each nail with the serious concentration of someone used to mastering difficult things through sheer determination. She asked careful questions about measurements and weight distribution, her vocabulary far more advanced than Emma's. Why do the support beams need to be exactly 16 inches apart? Marcus knelt beside her, showing her how the spacing worked. Because the plywood sheets we'll use for the floor are 4 feet wide. 4 feet divided by 3 spaces equals 16 inches. It's the perfect distance to distribute weight evenly without wasting material. Lily's eyes lit up with the kind of excitement that came from understanding how things fit together, how math became real in the world of hammers and nails. That's elegant. Like how violin strings are tuned in perfect fifths because of harmonic resonance. Marcus had no idea what harmonic resonance meant in musical terms, but he recognized the intellectual hunger behind the comparison. This girl who'd grown up with everything money could buy was starving for something else entirely. Connection, purpose, the satisfaction of making something with her own hands. Emma showed Lily how to draw plans in the dirt with a stick, and Lily's face lit up with unguarded joy. The expensive polish was fading with each passing minute, sawdust in her carefully styled hair, dirt on her patent leather shoes, grass stains on the navy dress that probably cost more than Marcus made in a day. Marcus watched them together and felt something fundamental shift in his chest. They could be sisters. They moved the same same way, tilted their heads at the same angle when thinking. Emma's coloring came from Sarah, that auburn hair and fair skin, while Lily was darker like Victoria. But underneath the surface differences, the architecture was identical. The shape of their hands, the way they both bit their lower lip when concentrating, the stubborn set of their shoulders when they decided something mattered. When Mrs. Brennan arrived, a stern-looking woman in her 60s who introduced herself with the warmth of a prison warden and shot Marcus a look that said she'd memorized his face for a future police lineup. Lily hugged Emma goodbye with the fierce desperation of someone who'd found water in a desert and was being forced to leave it behind. "Can we do this again?" The hope in her voice when she looked between Emma and Marcus made something in his chest crack open. Emma answered before Marcus could. "Yes, tomorrow. We can work on the treehouse every day until it's done." Lily's smile could have lit cities. The address Victoria had given him led to a neighborhood Marcus had only ever driven through on his way to somewhere else. The kind of place where houses hid behind stone walls and ancient trees, where money wasn't flaunted because it didn't need to be. Old money, generational wealth that predated his grandfather's woodworking business by a century or more. The gate opened at his approach, clearly expecting him. Marcus followed a winding drive through manicured gardens that probably required a full-time staff to maintain, past fountains and sculptures that belonged in museums. The house itself was a modern masterpiece of glass and steel, all clean lines and soaring spaces that seemed designed to make visitors feel small. This wasn't just art gallery curator money. This was something else entirely. Inheritance, trust funds, the kind of wealth that came with responsibilities and complications Marcus couldn't begin to imagine. Victoria answered the door herself, barefoot in jeans and an oversized sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders in a way that made Marcus's chest ache with sense memory. She looked younger like this, closer to the girl he'd known, the one who'd laugh until she couldn't breathe and paint until dawn, and talk about changing the world through art. "Come in." She stepped aside to let him enter a foyer that was more gallery than home. Soaring ceilings, carefully curated paintings, sculpture that probably cost more than his house. Everything tasteful, expensive, perfect, and somehow completely soulless. "Lily's asleep?" Victoria nodded. "Her room's on the 3rd floor. She won't hear us." She led him through the house to a study lined with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, poured them both whiskey from a crystal decanter without asking if he wanted it, and handed him a glass with shaking hands. They stood like that for a moment, not quite facing each other, while the weight of 10 years pressed down on the space between them. Outside, crickets sang their evening song. Inside, the silence was heavy enough to crush. Victoria spoke first, her voice flat with the careful control of someone who'd rehearsed this speech in mirrors and empty rooms. Her name is Lily Ashford. She's 9 years old. She was born on March 14th at Presbyterian Hospital in New York City. She likes art and mathematics, plays violin at a pre-conservatory level, speaks 3 languages, and has never had a birthday party with more than 2 other children present. She paused, took a long drink of whiskey, and continued. She's also never met her father, has no idea who he is, and I've spent 9 years making sure it stays that way. The words were meant to hurt, and they did. Marcus pushed past the pain. Withdraw. It was the only question that mattered. Victoria finally turned to face him, and the raw anguish in her expression made him take an involuntary step forward. Because telling you would have destroyed everything you had. Because I left to give you a chance at a real life, not the half-existence I could offer you. She set down her glass and wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking very small in the oversized sweater. I found out I was pregnant 3 weeks after I left. I was in New York, starting the gallery job, and I took a test in a convenience store bathroom at 2 in the morning because I couldn't sleep and kept throwing up and couldn't keep pretending it was stress. Her voice cracked. She paused to collect herself. I sat on that dirty floor with the plastic stick in my hand, and I thought about calling you. God, Marcus, I thought about it for days. I had my phone out 100 times. But then I did what I always do. I researched. I looked you up online, checked your social media, and that's when I saw it. She met his eyes, and hers were swimming now. You were engaged to Sarah. You'd posted photos from a dinner where you proposed. You look so happy, Marcus. So fundamentally at peace in a way you never looked with me. Marcus felt like the floor had dropped away. You were pregnant with my child, and you didn't tell me because I'd moved on? The anger in his voice was sharp, but underneath it was something much more complicated. Victoria laughed, but it was bitter. Not just moved on. You'd found what you needed. Sarah was, God, even in those photos I could see she was steady, present, everything I wasn't. I was chaos, Marcus. I was ambition and restlessness. I would have pulled you away from your family, your business, everything that grounded you. And for what? A relationship that was already falling apart before I left? She pressed the heels of her hands against her eyes. I loved you enough to let you be happy, even if it meant raising our daughter alone. The silence that followed was heavy with all the different futures that had died that day in a New York bathroom. Marcus's voice, when he finally found it, was rough. You didn't just decide for yourself, Victoria. You decided for me, for Lily. You took away my choice. She nodded slowly. I know, and I've lived with that guilt every single day. But Marcus, you need to understand. I didn't just disappear. I came from money. Old money that my family had been managing for generations. When my father died 6 months after Lily was born, I inherited the Ashford Foundation. Millions of dollars, property, investments, all of it tied up in trusts and legal structures that would have made co-parenting a nightmare. She turned to face him fully now, and he saw the exhaustion carved into her features. I wasn't just some art student who got lucky with the gallery job. I was a trust fund kid trying to build something on my own before the money swallowed me. And when it did, when I became Lily's only parent and sole heir to everything my family had built, I made a choice. I built walls. I kept her safe. I kept her private. And I told myself that giving you up was the price of that safety. Marcus set down his untouched whiskey, his hands trembling too badly to hold the glass. Did Sarah know? Victoria shook her head. How would she? I made sure every trace of my pregnancy disappeared. Used my mother's maiden name at the hospital. Had the birth registered under a different surname initially, changed it legally when Lily was 6 months old. I was thorough, Marcus. Ruthlessly thorough. She paused, then added softly, I'm sorry about Sarah. I read about it online. I thought about reaching out then, but Marcus cut her off. But what? You thought I'd had enough suffering? Didn't need to know I had another daughter? The words came out harsher than he'd intended. He saw Victoria flinch. I thought you deserved to grieve in peace. I thought adding this truth would only multiply the pain. That wasn't your call to make. But his anger was fading now, replaced by something more complex. Grief for all the moments he'd missed, mixed with understanding he didn't want to feel. He thought about those years with Sarah, how complete they'd seemed, how Emma's arrival had felt like the perfect fulfillment of their family. If Victoria had told him about Lily then, what would he have done? Left his pregnant wife? Split his time between two families? The scenarios played out in his head, and none of them ended well. Maybe Victoria had been right. Maybe her silence had been a strange kind of gift, allowing him to love Sarah and Emma without the complication of divided loyalties. But now Sarah was gone, and the secret had found its way to light anyway, and Marcus couldn't decide if this was fate or just terrible timing. Why didn't you tell me when Sarah died? You had 2 years. 2 years where telling me wouldn't have destroyed an existing family. Victoria's face crumpled, because by then I was terrified. Terrified you'd hate me. Terrified you'd take Lily away. Terrified she'd hate me for keeping you from her farm. I'd built this entire life on the story that her father was a brief relationship that didn't work out, that he didn't know about her and was happier that way. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face unchecked. I told her he was a good man who loved building things, who had kind hands and would have loved her if he'd known she existed, but that sometimes adults make choices they can't undo. Her voice broke completely. I told her about the tattoos, showed her mine, told her somewhere in the world was a person with the matching one who carried a piece of her in his heart, even though he didn't know it. It was the only truth I could give her. Marcus moved without thinking, crossing the space between them and pulling her into his arms. She collapsed against him, 10 years of held tears finally breaking free. He held her while she shook with the force of them, and he was crying too, silent tears for everything they'd lost and everything they'd done to each other in the name of love. They stood like that for a long time, two people who tried to protect each other in the worst possible ways, while upstairs a child slept, who was proof that some secrets are too big to stay buried. When Victoria finally pulled back, her face was blotchy and her eyes were red, and she looked more real than she had in 10 years. What do we do now? Marcus wiped his own face with the back of his hand and took a shaky breath. Now you tell me everything. Every birthday I missed, every milestone, every word she said and step she took. You tell me about her. Really tell me, and then we figure out how to be honest with her together. Victoria nodded slowly, relief and terror warring on her face. She asks about you, about her father. She has this fantasy that you're out of there somewhere, that someday you'll find each other and it'll be like a fairy tale. I've tried to prepare her for disappointment, but she's so hopeful, Marcus. She's got your stubbornness and my dreaming, and it's this heartbreaking combination of wanting the impossible and believing she can make it happen through sheer force of will. Marcus felt something fierce and protective surge through him. Tell me. So she did. They sat on the floor of that expensive study, backs against a leather couch that probably cost more than Marcus's truck, and Victoria told him about the daughter he'd never known. Lily was born 3 weeks early during a thunderstorm that knocked out power in half of Manhattan. Victoria labored alone except for a nurse who held her hand through contractions. No family present because she'd told them she was traveling for work. The baby came out screaming with her fists raised like she was ready to fight the world. 6 pounds, 4 ounces of fury and determination. The first 3 months were hell. Lily had colic that no amount of rocking or formula adjustments could touch. She'd scream for hours, inconsolable, until Victoria learned that humming, just the constant vibration of sound, would calm her enough to sleep. So Victoria hummed until her throat was raw, until the building superintendent complained about the noise at 3 in the morning, until she could barely speak above a whisper during the day. Lily's first word was more because she was always hungry for everything, more food, more books, more music, more life crammed into each waking moment. At 3, she conducted an invisible orchestra with a wooden spoon, so serious about it that Victoria found her a real violin teacher. The woman declared the child had perfect pitch and refused payment for the first year of lessons, insisting it was an honor to teach someone with such natural talent. At 5, Lily was reading chapter books and asking questions about death and infinity that Victoria had no idea how to answer. Where do we go when we die? What's at the edge of the universe? If time is infinite, does that mean everything that can happen will happen? Victoria showed Marcus photos on her phone, baby pictures she'd never posted anywhere, kept locked in encrypted folders. Lily at 6 months, gummy smile and Victoria's dark hair already thick. Lily at 2, covered in finger paint and delighted by the mess. Lily at 4, standing on a box to reach her violin, bow held with the concentration of a surgeon. At 7, she started asking why she didn't have a dad like other kids at school. I told her the truth as gently as I could, that her father was a good man who didn't know she existed, that circumstances had kept us apart, that it wasn't about her being unwanted. Marcus's voice came out strangled. What did she say? Victoria's hands trembled as she scrolled through more photos. She asked if she could meet you someday. I told her maybe, when she was older. She accepted that. But then the nightmares started. Dreams about being forgotten, about searching for someone who didn't exist. She'd wake up crying for a father she'd never met, and I'd hold her and feel the weight of every lie I'd ever told crushing my chest. The loneliness was what broke Victoria's heart most. Despite the money for private schools and tutors and every opportunity, Lily was isolated. The other wealthy kids sensed she was different, a foundation heiress being raised by a single mother in a world where lineage and traditional families still mattered. Their parents whispered at pickup, speculation about the Ashford heir's mysterious origins. Lily learned early to build walls around herself, let very few people in, trust even fewer. Marcus listened to 9 years compressed into hours, his daughter's entire childhood delivered in fragments and photos, and Victoria's guilt-soaked memories. By the time she finished, it was past midnight, and he felt like he'd lived a parallel life he'd been robbed of experiencing in real time. I want to tell her, not tonight, not tomorrow, but soon. She deserves to know. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, fear and resignation playing across her features. Emma deserves to know, too. They already love each other. I could see it today in your backyard. Maybe they knew before we did. Marcus thought about Emma's comment about always wanting a sister, about Lily's desperate hug goodbye, about how right they'd look standing side by side, measuring lumber and planning a treehouse that didn't yet exist except in their shared imagination. They're sisters. However we got here, whatever we did wrong, they're sisters, and they should get to be sisters. Victoria nodded, something loosening in her shoulders like she'd been holding her breath for 9 years and could finally exhale. How do we do this? Carefully, honestly, together. The word felt strange in his mouth. Together applied to him and Victoria after a decade of determined separation. But they were bound now by something stronger than old romance or ancient hurt. They were bound by Lily, by Emma, by the recognition that 2 children deserved better than the mess their parents had made. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus and Victoria navigated an impossible situation with the delicacy of people diffusing a bomb made of their own mistakes. They met for coffee while the girls were at school. Neutral cafes where neither could break down without witnesses, where conversations stayed measured even when emotions ran hot. The first meeting was Tuesday morning at a diner off Route 32, halfway between Marcus's shop and Victoria's foundation offices. She arrived in a power suit, he in work clothes with sawdust still caught in the creases of his boots. They sat across from each other like diplomats from warring nations negotiating a fragile peace. Lily asked about Emma 3 times yesterday. She wants to know when she can come back. Marcus stirred sugar into coffee he didn't want. Emma drew a picture of her and Lily in the treehouse, put it on the fridge next to her spelling test. She's never mentioned wanting a friend this much. Victoria's fingers drummed against her cup, a nervous habit he remembered from their past. We can't keep having supervised play dates without explaining why. Kids aren't stupid. They'll figure out something's off. So we set a date, pick a day, plan what we'll say, and we tell them. The idea terrified them both. Victoria's face went pale, her professional composure cracking to reveal the frightened mother underneath. What if Lily hates me? What if she can't forgive me for lying her whole life? Marcus wanted to offer reassurance he didn't feel, platitudes about children being resilient and love conquering all. Instead, he offered honesty. Maybe she will. Maybe this breaks something between you that can't be fixed. But keeping the secret breaks something too. Just slower, over years instead of days. You told me she has nightmares about being forgotten. How much worse will those get when she finds out the truth and we weren't the ones who told her? The logic was sound even if it offered no comfort. Victoria wrapped both hands around her coffee cup like it could anchor her. I've been running from this for 9 years. Another day won't make me braver. They texted throughout the day after that, short updates that felt both mundane and monumental. Victoria sent photos of Lily at violin practice, fingers flying across strings with the precision of someone who'd been training since she could hold the instrument. Marcus sent back pictures of Emma in his workshop, helping sand a chair leg with the seriousness of an apprentice learning a sacred craft. Wednesday afternoon, Mrs. Brennan brought Lily to Marcus's workshop after school. The nanny's expression remained professionally neutral, but Marcus caught her watching him with an intensity that suggested she was cataloging every interaction for some future judgment. Lily wore her school uniform still, navy blazer, pleated skirt, knee socks that were already sliding down from playground activity. She carried her violin case like a security blanket, setting it carefully in the corner before approaching the workbench where Marcus was assembling a bookshelf. "What are you making?" "Custom shelving for a client's library, oak with dovetail joints. Want to help?" Her eyes lit up with an eagerness that reminded Marcus painfully of himself at that age, when his father first let him use real tools instead of toy versions. "I don't know how." "That's what learning is for. Come here." He showed her how to check if two pieces fit flush, how to feel for gaps that the eye might miss. Her hands, small and careful from years of violin training, had the sensitivity required for precision work. When she found a slight misalignment in a joint, pride flashed across her face, the satisfaction of discovering a problem she could help solve. Emma burst in 20 minutes later, backpack still on, breathless from running. "Dad, I finished my homework in study hall so I could come help." "Oh, hi, Lily." The girls gravitated toward each other with the magnetic pull of people who recognize something essential in one another. Emma dumped her backpack and immediately started explaining the treehouse plans she'd been refining on notebook paper during math class. Lily asked questions about structural integrity and weight distribution. Emma answered with the practical knowledge she'd absorbed from watching Marcus work since she was old enough to toddle into the workshop. They spoke different languages. Emma's vocabulary came from hands-on experience, Lily's from books and formal education, but they understood each other perfectly. Marcus watched them measure scrap wood for a scale model, heads bent together over Emma's sketches, and felt his heart do something complicated in his chest. This was what he'd been robbed of. Not just knowing Lily existed, but watching her grow alongside Emma, seeing them become sisters in real time instead of having it thrust upon them after 9 years of separation. Mrs. Brennan sat in the corner reading a book, but her attention never strayed far from Lily. Every few minutes, her gaze would flick up, assessing, evaluating. Marcus couldn't tell if she approved or was gathering evidence for some future custody battle. The woman's face revealed nothing except professional vigilance. When the hour was up and Mrs. Brennan stood to collect Lily, both girls protested. "Can I stay for dinner, please? Emma says her dad makes really good spaghetti." Victoria had been clear about the 1-hour limit, but Marcus found himself looking at Mrs. Brennan with something like hope. The nanny's expression remained stern, but something flickered in her eyes, calculation perhaps, or recognition of the inevitability they were all dancing around. "I'll need to call your mother." She stepped outside, phone pressed to her ear. Through the workshop window, Marcus watched her explain the situation. When she returned, her expression had softened fractionally. "Miss Victoria says one dinner won't hurt, but you're to be home by 7:30, and I'll be collecting you personally." The girls celebrated like they'd won a major victory instead of just 3 more hours. Marcus texted Victoria, "Thank you for trusting me." Her response came seconds later. "Not sure trust is the right word, but you deserve this." Dinner was chaotic in the best way. Emma showed Lily how to set the table properly. Forks on the left, knife and spoon on the right, while Marcus boiled pasta and heated the sauce he'd made over the weekend. Lily moved through his kitchen with the careful precision of someone used to formal dining, arranging napkins with geometrical exactness. "At home, we have someone who cooks for us. I've never helped make dinner before." Emma looked scandalized. "You've never cooked? Not even helped?" Mother says the kitchen is Mrs. Chen's domain. She gets upset if anyone interferes. Marcus stirred sauce that was filling the kitchen with the smell of garlic and basil and tomatoes that had simmered long enough to achieve perfection. In this house, everybody helps. That's how families work. Everyone contributes what they can. The word family hung in the air, heavier than he'd intended. Lily went very still, her hands frozen mid-napkin fold. When she looked up, her eyes held a hunger that had nothing to do with food. Can I learn to cook? Sure, start by getting the salad bowl from that cupboard. They ate at Marcus' scratched kitchen table instead of the formal dining room he never used, passing garlic bread and grating Parmesan that Lily insisted on doing herself despite never having used a grater before. She bloodied her knuckle on the third pass, crying out more from surprise than pain. Marcus was there in a second with a clean dish towel and antiseptic. First rule of the kitchen, the grater always wins. Second rule, everyone gets hurt learning. Third rule, you get back up and finish the job. He bandaged her knuckle with the efficiency of someone who'd patched countless workshop injuries. Lily watched his hands with something like wonder. You're gentle for someone with such big hands. Woodworking teaches you precision. You learn to be gentle with things that matter. Emma chimed in around a mouthful of pasta. Dad's really good at fixing things. He fixed my bike last week when the chain came off. He fixed my treehouse measurements today when I calculated the angles wrong. Both girls looked at him with the kind of uncomplicated admiration that made Marcus's throat tight. This was what fatherhood was supposed to feel like, being the person who fixed broken things and taught hard lessons and made spaghetti on Wednesday nights. After dinner, Lily helped wash dishes. She'd clearly never done it before, held the sponge like it might bite her, used too much soap, splashed water everywhere. Emma found it hilarious and turned it into a game, seeing who could make more bubbles. By the time Mrs. Brennan arrived at 7:20, both girls were damp and giggling, the kitchen a disaster of soap suds and clean dishes. The nanny stood in the doorway surveying the chaos. For the first time since Marcus had met her, the corners of her mouth twitched upward. Miss Lily, your mother is going to have opinions about the state of your uniform. Lily looked down at her soap-stained blazer and water-spotted skirt without concern. It was worth it. After they left, Emma helped Marcus wipe down counters and put away dishes. She was quieter than usual, thoughtful in a way that made him nervous. Dad? Yeah, kiddo? Lily doesn't have anyone to teach her normal stuff, like cooking and fixing bikes and making soap bubbles. Marcus squeezed out the dish rag, buying time to find the right words. She has her mom. Victoria takes good care of her. But she doesn't have a dad, not like I have you. The observation landed like a punch. Emma wasn't accusing or angry, just stating a fact with the clarity of childhood logic. Some families look different, Em. That doesn't make them wrong. I know, but it makes them lonely. That night, Marcus lay awake thinking about Lily's face when he'd bandaged her knuckle, the way she'd watched him like he was performing magic instead of basic first aid. He thought about Emma's assessment. Lily doesn't have anyone to teach her normal stuff, and realized his daughter had identified something Victoria's millions couldn't buy. The mundane, unglamorous work of daily parenting. The scraped knees and spaghetti dinners and patient explanations of how graders work. Victoria called at 11 when she knew Lily would be asleep. Mrs. Brennan said she had fun. Emma's already asking when Lily can come back. Silence on the other end, waited with everything they weren't saying. Finally, Victoria spoke, her voice smaller than he'd ever heard it. I'm terrified of losing her, Marcus. If we tell her the truth and she chooses you, chooses the normal life you can give her instead of the gilded cage I've built, I don't know how I'd survive that. Marcus understood the fear because he felt its mirror image. What if we tell Emma and she resents having to share me? What if this breaks what we have? So we're both terrified. Yeah, but we're doing it anyway. Another long pause, then Victoria's laugh, bitter and exhausted. When did we become brave? I don't think we are. I think we're just out of other options. The playdates continued through September. Lily came to the workshop every Wednesday, then Saturdays too, when Victoria tentatively suggested it, and Marcus agreed before he could overthink it. The girls were inseparable during those hours, finishing each other's sentences and developing the kind of shorthand communication that siblings create. They fought sometimes, petty arguments about whose turn it was to pick music or who got to hammer the next nail. Marcus treasured those fights because they were beautifully normal, the ordinary friction of two kids learning to share space and attention. Lily was shedding her expensive polish like a snake shedding skin. Sawdust became a permanent feature in her hair. Her school uniforms acquired grass stains that Mrs. Brennan clucked over. She stopped worrying about getting dirty, stopped checking if her clothes were perfectly arranged, stopped being quite so careful with everything. One Saturday afternoon, Emma pushed Lily on the tire swing Marcus had hung from the oak tree. Lily shrieked with laughter, not the polite, controlled giggling of formal occasions, but genuine belly laughs that echoed across the backyard. She pumped her legs, going higher, wind whipping her dark hair, face split in a grin of pure joy. Mrs. Brennan watched from her usual position on the porch steps. When Lily jumped off mid-swing and landed hard in the grass, scraping both palms, the nanny started to rise. Marcus caught her eye and shook his head fractionally. Let her handle it. Lily examined her bloody palms, lower lip trembling. Emma was already there with paper towels from the workshop. It's okay, Dad says everyone bleeds when they're learning to flee. Marcus had never said anything of the sort, but the sentiment was sound. Lily let Emma clean the scrapes, then demanded to go again, higher this time. Mrs. Brennan settled back onto the steps. When she caught Marcus looking, she gave him the slightest nod. Approval, maybe, or acknowledgement that he was doing something right. Marcus was falling in love with his daughter in increments, the way she bit her lower lip when concentrating on measurements, how she asked a million questions about grain direction and structural engineering, and why some woods were harder than others. Her fierce determination to master every task she attempted, whether it was hammering nails or making sandwiches. He noticed himself watching for her arrival on Wednesdays, the same anticipation he felt when Emma got home from school. Started thinking about her when she wasn't there, wondering if she'd like the bookshelf he was building or if she'd solved the math problem that had stumped her last visit. This was his daughter. The biological reality he'd accepted intellectually on the floor of Victoria's study became emotional fact in his workshop, watching her learn to sand with the grain and celebrate when a joint fit perfectly. But with love came fear. What happened when Victoria's lawyers got involved? What if the Ashford family, or family, whoever they were beyond Victoria and Lily, decided Marcus wasn't suitable to be in their heir's life? What if telling Lily the truth shattered her in ways they couldn't predict or prevent? Week 5 brought the first serious crack in their careful dance. Emma came home from school on Tuesday, with tears streaming down her face and a note from her teacher requesting a parent meeting. Marcus's stomach dropped reading about aggressive behavior toward classmates, talking back to teachers, disruption during reading time. Emma, his even-tempered daughter who'd never gotten in trouble beyond forgetting homework, had pushed another girl off the monkey bars. She said I was weird because I don't have a mom. She said her mom told her dad probably can't take care of me right. Marcus pulled Emma into his arms, fury at small-minded parents warring with a concern for his daughter. You know that's not true. I know. But then I thought about Lily and how she doesn't have a dad, and people probably say mean things about her too. And I just got so mad. The connection to Lily gave Marcus pause. Emma was processing something she didn't have words for yet, acting out feelings she couldn't name. At home that afternoon, Emma refused to play with her favorite toys. She sat at the kitchen table drawing angry scribbles in black crayon, while Marcus made her a snack she didn't eat. Why does Lily get to come here so much? The question came out aggressive, challenging. Because she's your friend, I thought you liked having her around. I do, but she's your friend too. You smile different when she's here. Marcus froze in the act of slicing an apple. What do you mean? Emma's face crumpled. I don't know, sometimes I want it to be just us again. Like before Mom died, just me and you. The raw honesty of it cut through Marcus's carefully constructed plans. In trying to build a relationship with Lily, he'd made Emma feel replaced. The very thing he'd feared for Lily, feeling unwanted, he'd inadvertently done to the daughter he'd raised since birth. He sat down across from Emma, taking her small hands in his larger ones. Nothing and nobody will ever change how much I love you. You're my Emma. You held my hand through losing your mom. You taught me how to keep living when I wanted to stop. There is no universe where anyone matters more to me than you do. Emma sniffled, unconvinced. But Lily needs you more. She never had a dad. Having another person to care about doesn't divide love, Em. It multiplies. My heart doesn't have a limit on how much room it has. That's cheesy, Dad. A small smile broke through her tears. Marcus took it as a victory. You're right, it is. But it's also true. That night he texted Victoria. We need to tell them soon. Emma's starting to figure out something's wrong. Victoria's response came an hour later. Foundation merger collapsed today. Board meeting was brutal. Everything's falling apart anyway. Maybe it's time to stop trying to hold the pieces together. Marcus called her instead of texting back. She answered on the first ring, her voice hoarse like she'd been crying. What happened? Rumors about Lily's paternity killed the deal. $50 million gone because people started asking questions about the Ashford heirs' mysterious origins. My father built that foundation from nothing, and I just watched it implode because I couldn't keep a secret buried. This isn't your fault, isn't it? I made every decision that led here. I could have told you when I found out I was pregnant, could have handled the inheritance differently, could have been honest from the start instead of building this elaborate structure of lies. Marcus heard ice clinking in a glass through the phone, Victoria drinking alone in that expensive house while their daughter slept upstairs, oblivious to the chaos unfolding around her. So we stop lying, we tell them the truth and deal with whatever comes after. I'm not ready. Neither am I. But we're out of runway, Victoria. The plane's going down whether we're ready or not. Thursday afternoon brought another crisis. Lily had a play date at Marcus's house, and Emma made an offhand comment while they were painting wood scraps for the treehouse. I wish you were my real sister. Lily froze, paintbrush dripping purple onto newspaper. Her breathing changed, became shallow and rapid. The paintbrush clattered to the ground as her hands started shaking. Emma looked stricken. Lily, I didn't mean... But Lily was hyperventilating now, eyes wide and unfocused, caught in something that looked like panic. Marcus had no idea what to do. Emma was crying, confused and scared. Lily couldn't seem to hear him when he said her name. Mrs. Brennan was through the door in seconds, like she'd been waiting for exactly this scenario. Lily, look at me. Breathe with me. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. She guided Lily through breathing exercises with practiced ease, voice calm and steady until the girl's panic subsided into trembling and tears. When Lily could speak, her voice was small and broken. I want to go home. Mrs. Brennan shot Marcus a look that communicated both sympathy and accusation. This is what happens when you disrupt a fragile child's carefully managed world. She gathered Lily's things while Marcus tried to comfort Emma, who was sobbing that she'd broken something she didn't understand. After they left, he held Emma until she cried herself into exhausted silence. Then he called Victoria. Lily had an anxiety attack at my house. Emma said something innocent, and Lily just fell apart. Victoria's sharp intake of breath told him she'd been expecting this. I'm calling Dr. Chen. We need professional help for this. Dr. Chen was a child psychologist who specialized in anxiety disorders and family transitions. She met with Victoria and Marcus separately first, then together, asking pointed questions about their plan for disclosure and the support systems in place for both girls. Children are more resilient than we give them credit for, but they need honesty. Lily suspects something. Her anxiety attacks are partly about sensing instability she can't name. Emma is acting out because she feels the shift in dynamics without understanding it. The longer you wait, the more damage you do to both of them. She gave them a framework. Be honest, but age-appropriate. Answer their questions without overwhelming them with adult complications. Reassure them that they're safe, loved, and not responsible for adult decisions. Tell them together in a neutral space. Let them react however they need to react. Don't try to control their emotions or make them feel better immediately. Just be present and truthful. They set a date, Saturday afternoon, 3 weeks from now. Time to prepare, to plan, to steel themselves for the moment everything changed. Marcus spent Friday evening in his workshop, unable to focus on actual projects. He pulled out a piece of cherry wood he'd been saving for something special and started carving without a plan. His hands knew what to make before his brain caught up. A small phoenix, wings spread, rising from stylized flames. Emma found him after midnight, barefoot in her pajamas. "You're sad about Lily." Marcus set down his carving tools and pulled Emma into his lap. "I'm sad about a lot of things, kiddo, but mostly I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of messing this up, of making wrong choices that hurt people I love." Emma was quiet for a while, just breathing against his chest. "Grown-ups make things too complicated. You love Lily, I can tell, and she needs someone to love her like that. So why is it scary?" "Because love isn't always enough to fix things. Sometimes love makes things more complicated. Mommy used to say love makes hard things possible, not easy." Marcus felt tears burn behind his eyes. Sarah had said that the day they found out her cancer was terminal. Love makes hard things possible, not easy. So let's do the hard thing and live every day we have left. Your mom was smart. Yeah, so you should listen to her. Saturday morning, Marcus ran into Mrs. Brennan at the grocery store. She approached him in the produce section, a rare occurrence given how carefully she usually maintained professional distance. "Mr. Donovan, I think we should talk." They got coffee at the shop next door, sitting at a corner table where no one could overhear. Mrs. Brennan folded her hands on the table, meeting his eyes with an intensity that made him nervous. "I've known since Lily was born." Marcus felt the world tilt. "Known what?" "That you're her father. I was Victoria's family housekeeper before I became Lily's nanny. I was there the day she came home from the hospital with a newborn. I saw the tattoo when I helped her bathe after the C-section. I heard her cry at night about someone named Marcus and the choice she'd had to make." Marcus couldn't speak. Mrs. Brennan continued, her stern expression softening fractionally. "I've watched you with my girl these past weeks. You're patient, kind. You teach her things she needs to know. She's happier than I've seen her in years. Comes home with dirt under her fingernails and stories about building things with her hands. That matters." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table. "If Miss Victoria loses her nerve, give her this." Inside were copies of baby photos. Lily at the hospital wrapped in a standard issue blanket. Lily at 3 months, Victoria holding her with the exhausted desperation of a new mother navigating alone. A note in Mrs. Brennan's careful handwriting. "Some secrets protect. Some secrets poison. You'll know which this is." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I'm retiring in 3 months, and I won't be there to help Lily through what comes next. She needs her father, Mr. Donovan. She's always needed him. I'm giving you ammunition to make sure Victoria doesn't back out." Friday evening, Victoria's world imploded professionally. The foundation board called an emergency meeting, questioning her leadership in the wake of the failed merger. Whispers about her personal life, the mysterious daughter, the absent father, the scandal potential, became loud enough that board members felt compelled to address them. She drove to Marcus's house without calling first, makeup ruined by tears, still wearing her board meeting suit. He opened the door to find her falling apart on his front step. "I lost the vote. They're forcing me out of active management, putting the foundation in a trust until Lily turns 18. Everything my father built, everything I've spent 9 years protecting, gone because I couldn't keep a secret buried." Marcus pulled her inside before the neighbors noticed. Emma was already asleep, so he made Victoria tea she didn't drink and let her cry in his living room until she'd exhausted the immediate grief. "This is a sign, the universe telling me to stop trying to control everything. I've been so focused on protecting her inheritance that I forgot she needs a father more than she needs money. We tell her tomorrow, like we planned." Victoria looked up, mascara streaked and terrified. "I'm not ready." "Neither am I, but we're doing it together." The word again, together, settling between them like a promise neither had expected to make. After Victoria left, Marcus sat Emma down. His daughter deserved advance warning, even if he couldn't tell her everything yet. "Tomorrow, Lily and her mom are coming over. We need to tell you both something important." Emma's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "About what?" "About family, about secrets, about mistakes I made before you were born." "Is Lily my sister?" The question hit him like a truck. Kids knew. They always knew. "Maybe. Would that be okay?" Emma was quiet for a long time, her 8-year-old brain working through implications adults spent weeks analyzing. Will you still love me the same? Marcus pulled her close, his voice breaking. Always. Forever. You're my Emma. Nothing changes that. Okay. Then it's okay. But he saw uncertainty in her eyes, the fear she was trying to be brave enough to hide. Nothing about this was okay yet. They were all just pretending until tomorrow forced them to stop. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He worked in the workshop until 3 in the morning, finishing the carved phoenix and sanding it smooth enough that no splinters could catch small fingers. Tomorrow, Lily would learn the truth. Tomorrow, Emma would gain a sister or lose the father she'd had all to herself. Tomorrow, everything changed, and he had no idea if they'd survive it intact. Victoria texted at 2, "Are you awake?" He called her instead. Terrified? Beyond words. You? Same. I keep thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. They talked until dawn broke, two people who'd loved each other badly once, learning how to be parents together in the wreckage of their past. When the sun came up, they were still scared, but they were ready to stop running from the truth they'd tried so hard to bury. Tomorrow, everything would change. Saturday arrived with perfect weather that felt like mockery. Bright sunshine, gentle breeze, temperatures warm enough that Marcus didn't need a jacket when he stood on his front porch at noon, waiting for Victoria's car to pull into the driveway. Emma was inside arranging cookies on a plate she'd insisted they needed, even though nobody would eat them. Nervous energy made her hands shake, dropping one cookie that shattered on the floor. She'd swept up the pieces and replaced it without comment, her face set in the determined expression she got when trying not to cry. Victoria's Mercedes appeared at 12:15, 15 minutes late. Marcus watched her sit in the driver's seat for a full minute after parking, gathering courage, or maybe saying goodbye to the version of her life that was about to end. Lily was visible in the back seat, looking confused about why they weren't moving. When they finally emerged, Victoria's professional armor was fully deployed. Tailored slacks, silk blouse, hair perfect. But her hands trembled when she smoothed Lily's dress, and Marcus saw the effort it took for her to walk up the porch steps instead of reversing out of the driveway. "We're doing this." Not a question, a statement of fact, like she was trying to convince herself. Together. Emma opened the door before they could knock, her smile too bright to be genuine. "Hi, Lily. We made cookies." "Well, Dad made them. I just helped." The girls gravitated toward each other with the same magnetic pull as always, but something was different today. Emma's movements were tighter, more controlled. Lily sensed the tension immediately, her shoulders drawing up in defensive posture. Why is everyone acting weird? Children saw through adult pretense like it was glass. Marcus exchanged a glance with Victoria. No more delays, no more excuses. "Let's sit down. We need to talk about something important." The shift in atmosphere was immediate. Both girls' faces closed off, their kid radar detecting serious adult business that usually meant bad news. They sat on the couch side by side, unconsciously presenting united front against whatever was coming. Marcus's carefully rehearsed opening dissolved in his mouth. He looked at Victoria for help, saw the same panic in her eyes. They were supposed to be the adults here, supposed to know what they were doing. Instead, they were two terrified people about to detonate a bomb in the center of their daughters' lives. "Girls, we need to tell you something we should have told you before. Something about our beast and about family and about mistakes we made a long time ago." Emma's eyes went wide. Lily went very still, the way prey animals freeze when they sense danger. Victoria picked up where Marcus faltered, her voice shaking despite obvious efforts at control. "A long time ago, before either of you were born, Marcus and I knew each other. We were close, very close. And then I moved away for work, and we lost touch, and life went in different directions." Emma was doing math in her head, her face scrunching with concentration. Lily had stopped breathing, waiting for whatever was coming with the terrible patience of someone who'd learned young that bad news always arrived eventually. Marcus forced the words out before courage failed completely. "Emma, you know how you've always said you wished you had a sister?" His daughter nodded slowly, eyes never leaving his face. "You do. You have a sister. Lily is your sister." The silence was absolute. Emma looked at Lily, then at Marcus, then at Victoria, her 8-year-old mind working through implications that would take adults weeks to process. Lily had gone pale, her hands gripping the couch cushions like she might fall if she let go. I don't understand. How can Lily be my sister? She has a different mom. This was the part Marcus had been dreading, the moment where abstract concepts became concrete reality, where he had to explain adult choices to children who deserved better than the mess they'd made. Victoria took over, her professional composure finally cracking as she addressed Lily directly. Honey, do you remember the stories I told you about your father? About the kind man who liked building things? Lily's voice came out barely above a whisper. The one who didn't know about me. He's Marcus, Emma's dad. He's your father too. The words hung in the air like smoke. Lily's face cycled through confusion, hope, disbelief, and finally a desperate kind of joy that made Marcus's chest feel too small for his heart. She stared at him with eyes that suddenly looked exactly like his own, searching for confirmation that this wasn't some cruel joke. You're my dad. You're the one from the stories? Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. Lily launched herself off the couch and into his arms with the force of 9 years of wanting. She hit his chest hard enough to knock him back a step, her small body shaking with sobs as she clung to him like he might disappear if she loosened her grip. I knew it. I knew when I saw the tattoo. I knew you were him. Mother, I knew. Marcus caught her, held her, felt his daughter crying against his shirt while his own tears fell into her dark hair. This was his child. The biological reality became visceral truth in the weight of her in his arms. The sound of her voice breaking on the word dad, the way she fit against him like a piece of a puzzle he hadn't known was incomplete. But Emma hadn't moved. She sat frozen on the couch, face working through emotions too complex for an 8-year-old to name. Victoria started to reach for her, but Emma pulled back, eyes fixed on Marcus with something that looked like betrayal. You lied? You all lied? Her voice cracked on the accusation. Lily went still in Marcus's arms, suddenly aware that joy for her meant pain for someone else. Victoria tried to explain, words tumbling out in desperate justification. Sweetheart, it's complicated. Adults made mistakes and we were trying to protect. How long? Emma cut her off, still looking at Marcus. How long did you know about her? Marcus's throat closed. He'd known this question was coming, had practiced answers that suddenly felt like more lies. A few weeks. Emma's face crumpled. Weeks? You knew for weeks and didn't tell me? She was off the couch and running before anyone could stop her. Footsteps pounding up the stairs, door slamming with the finality of trust breaking. Marcus moved to follow, but Victoria caught his arm. Let me. She headed upstairs while Marcus stood in his living room with Lily still clinging to him, both of them frozen in the wreckage of a moment that was supposed to bring them together, but had instead torn something else apart. Lily pulled back to look at Marcus's face, her joy already dimming as she processed Emma's reaction. Does Emma hate me now? No, baby, she doesn't hate you. She's just scared and hurt and doesn't understand yet. Can I call you that, Dad? The question broke him. Marcus cupped her face in his hands, seeing his own features reflected in hers. The nose, the jawline, the stubborn set of her mouth when she was trying not to cry. You can call me whatever feels right. Dad, Marcus, whatever you want. Dad, I want to call you Dad. She wrapped her arms around him again, but the desperate edge was gone, replaced by uncertainty. They could hear Victoria's voice upstairs, murmuring soothing words punctuated by Emma's angry responses that were too muffled to make out clearly. Marcus sat on the couch with Lily, neither sure what to do with this new reality. She kept touching his arm, his hand, his shoulder. Small reassurances that he was real and present and not going to vanish like he had before she was born. Are you going to leave again? The fear in her voice cut through him. I never left, Lily. I didn't know you existed. If I had known, nothing could have kept me away. Mother said you had your own life, that telling you would have made everything complicated. Marcus thought about how to explain adult choices to a 9-year-old without making her mother the villain of this story. Your mother made a really hard choice because she loved me and wanted me to be happy. She wasn't trying to hurt anyone. Sometimes people do the wrong thing for the right reasons. Is that what grown-ups do? Make everything complicated? Yeah, kiddo, we're really good at that. Victoria appeared at the top of the stairs, shaking her head. Emma wasn't ready to come down. Marcus felt the weight of that rejection settle in his chest. His first daughter refusing to see him because he'd been building a relationship with his second daughter in secret. The next hour was stilted and painful. Lily asked 1,000 questions while Emma stayed upstairs. Could she come visit whenever she wanted? Could she stay overnight sometimes? Was Marcus really going to be her dad now? Not just someone who let her use his workshop? Marcus answered each question as honestly as he could, but part of his attention was always on the ceiling, listening for sounds of Emma moving around, hoping she'd come down and let him explain. When Victoria finally said they should go, Lily's face fell. But we just got here, can I stay longer? Your dad needs to talk to Emma. We'll come back soon. The word dad in Victoria's mouth sounded strange, like she was trying on a new language. Lily hugged Marcus goodbye with the same fierce desperation as before, making him promise 3 times that this was real, that he wasn't going to disappear now that she knew the truth. After they left, Marcus stood at the bottom of the stairs for a long moment, gathering courage to face his daughter's hurt. When he knocked on Emma's door, silence answered. Em, can I come in? No. Her voice was thick with tears but defiant. Marcus leaned his forehead against the door. I'm sorry, I should have told you sooner. I was scared and I handled it wrong. You promised. After Mom died, you promised we'd always be honest with each other. The accusation landed like a physical blow because she was right. He'd made that promise during those terrible weeks after Sarah's funeral, when Emma had nightmares about him disappearing too. He'd sworn he'd always tell her the truth, always be there, always choose her first. And then he'd kept a secret that fundamentally changed her world. You're right. I broke that promise. And I'm sorry. Silence, then quietly. Are you going to love her more than me? Marcus's heart cracked open. He pressed his palm flat against the door, wishing he could pull Emma into his arms. Never. Impossible. You're my Emma. Having another daughter doesn't make me love you less. Love doesn't divide, it multiplies. There's room for both of you. That's what you said before, but now she's here and you smile at her the way you used to smile at Mom. The observation was devastating in its accuracy. Marcus had been falling in love with Lily in ways he hadn't consciously registered, drawn to her quick mind and her hunger to learn, her determination to master whatever she attempted. It didn't replace his love for Emma, but Emma couldn't see that distinction yet. Can I come in, please? After a long pause, the lock clicked. Marcus opened the door to find Emma on her bed, face red and splotchy, stuffed elephant from her mother clutched to her chest. She wouldn't look at him. He sat on the edge of the bed, not touching, giving her space to be angry. Lily needs me because she never had a dad. I get that. But I need you too. I know you do, baby. So why does it feel like I'm losing you? Marcus chose his next words carefully, knowing they'd shape how Emma understood this for years to come. When your mom died, it was just us against the world. You and me. And that felt safe, right? Just the two of us. Nobody else to worry about. Emma nodded against her elephant. But safe isn't the same as good. Your mom wouldn't want us to close ourselves off from other people just because loving them is scary. She'd want us to be brave enough to let our family grow, even if it's messy and complicated. But Lily gets you all the time now. Wednesdays and Saturdays and dinner that one time. And you get me every other day, every morning and every night and every school pickup and every bedtime story. Sharing me doesn't mean losing me. Emma finally looked at him, her green eyes swimming. Promise? Promise, you're stuck with me, kiddo. Forever. She let him pull her into a hug, but Marcus felt the tension in her shoulders, the way she didn't quite relax against him the way she used to. Trust had been damaged. It would take more than promises to repair it. The next 2 weeks were brutal. Emma agreed to see Lily during scheduled visits, but kept her distance emotionally, watching with guarded eyes when Lily laughed at Marcus's jokes or asked him for help with measurements. She'd interrupt conversations, demand attention, test boundaries in ways she hadn't since she was 4. Lily picked up on the hostility and withdrew into careful politeness, the expensive polish returning like armor. She stopped asking if she could stay longer, stopped making plans for future visits, stopped assuming she was welcome. The easy friendship they'd built pre-revelation crumbled under the weight of truth. Marcus tried to balance attention between them, but felt like he was failing both. Give Lily too much focus, and Emma would act out for hours afterward. Pay attention to Emma and Lily's face would close off, convinced she was the interloper neither Marcus nor Emma really wanted. Victoria called Tuesday night sounding exhausted. Lily cried herself to sleep asking if Emma hates her. I don't know what to tell her. Emma's scared. Give her time. We don't have time, Marcus. Lily's anxiety is getting worse. She had another episode at school today, full panic attack during music class. The school psychologist called me in. Marcus rubbed his face, the weight of two daughters' pain pressing down on him. What did Dr. Chen say? That we're doing everything wrong. That telling them was right, but managing the aftermath is failing. She wants to see all four of us together. The family therapy session was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. All four of them crammed into Dr. Chen's office, a space designed to be soothing with soft colors and comfortable chairs that felt anything but comfortable under bad circumstances. Dr. Chen was a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She spent the first 10 minutes just observing them, watching how they arranged themselves in chairs, who looked at whom, where the invisible battle lines were drawn. Emma, can you tell me how you felt when you found out Lily was your sister? Emma, who'd been silent since they arrived, picked at the arm of her chair. Confused, mad, scared. Scared of what? That Dad would like her better because she's new and interesting and I'm just regular. Lily made a small wounded sound. Dr. Chen held up a hand before anyone could speak. Lily, what did you feel when you found out Marcus was your father? Happy, really, really happy, like I'd been missing something my whole life and suddenly it was there. And now, how do you feel now? Lily's voice dropped to barely audible. Scared that I made Emma's life worse. Scared that wanting a dad makes me selfish. Scared that any minute someone's going to realize I don't belong and make me leave. Dr. Chen looked at the adults. You see the problem. Two children, both terrified they're not wanted, both competing for proof that they matter. As long as they see each other as threats instead of allies, this won't work. She turned back to the girls. Emma, what do you know about Lily's life before she met your dad? Emma shrugged. She's rich, lives in a mansion, gets to do fancy stuff like violin lessons. Lily, tell Emma what it was actually like. Lily's face scrunched like she might cry. Lonely. I didn't have friends because other kids thought I was weird. I ate dinner by myself most nights because Mother was working. I had everything money could buy, but nobody to play with or talk to who wasn't getting paid to be there. Emma looked genuinely surprised. Dr. Chen pressed. Emma, what was your life like after your mom died? Sad, really sad, but Dad was there. Every morning making breakfast, every night reading stories. He taught me how to fix things and build things, and we had each other. Lily, what do you think about that? I wish I had that. Someone to teach me normal stuff. Someone who was there. Dr. Chen let the silence stretch, letting them sit with the revelation that they both had what the other desperately wanted and lacked. You're not enemies. You're not even really competing. You're two girls who've both lost something and found each other in the middle of that loss. Emma lost her mother. Lily never had a father, but now you have a chance to help each other instead of making each other's pain worse. Emma's defenses were cracking, her face softening as she looked at Lily with new understanding. I didn't know you were lonely. You always seemed perfect. I'm not. I'm scared all the time of messing up, of people leaving, of not being good enough. Me too, ever since Mom died. Dr. Chen smiled for the first time. So maybe instead of fighting over your dad, you could have each other. Sisters who understand what it's like to be squared and trying to be brave anyway. The shift wasn't instant. Years of therapy had taught Dr. Chen not to expect miracles. But something loosened in the room, some of the defensive tension bleeding out as both girls considered the possibility that they didn't have to be adversaries. On the way home, Emma was quiet in the back seat. Finally, she spoke. "Can Lily come over this weekend? For real? Not just because we have to?" Marcus met her eyes in the rearview mirror. "Yeah, kiddo, I'll ask her mom." That Friday night, both girls slept over at Marcus's house. Victoria had been skeptical about the idea, but Dr. Chen encouraged it. Controlled exposure to build trust and normalcy. Marcus set them up in Emma's room with sleeping bags and more pillows than necessary. They were tentative with each other at first, polite in a way that felt fragile. But then Emma pulled out her collection of favorite books and started reading one aloud, and Lily curled up next to her to see the pictures, and something shifted. By midnight, they were giggling over some private joke Marcus couldn't follow from downstairs. He checked on them around 1 to find both girls asleep, Emma's arm thrown over Lily's shoulders, Lily's hand clutching Emma's pajama sleeve like an anchor. Marcus stood in the doorway watching his daughter sleep and felt a lump in his throat. This was what he'd been terrified of destroying, this tentative connection between two kids who needed each other more than they'd known. The nightmare hit around 3 in the morning. Lily's screams woke the entire house, high and terrified and completely inconsolable. By the time Marcus got upstairs, she was thrashing in her sleeping bag, caught in some dream he couldn't reach. Emma was awake and crying, scared by Lily's panic but not sure what to do. Marcus knelt beside Lily, calling her name until she surfaced enough to recognize him. Even then, it took 15 minutes of breathing exercises and constant reassurance before she could speak. "I dreamed you forgot about me, that I came to visit and you didn't remember who I was." Her voice was small and broken, 9 years of abandonment fears condensing into one terrible image. "That's not going to happen, I promise. I'm not going anywhere, Lily. I'm your dad. That doesn't change." Emma watched from her bed, seeing Lily's terror with new eyes. When Lily finally calmed enough to stop shaking, Emma climbed down and crawled into the sleeping bag next to her without asking permission. "I get bad dreams too, about my mom disappearing and my dad forgetting to come home. But Dad's always there when I wake up. He'll be there for you too." Lily turned to look at Emma, both girls' faces tear-stained and exhausted. "You promise?" "Yeah, and if you have bad dreams, I'll wake you up. That's what sisters do." The word sisters hung between them, tentative and new. Lily reached for Emma's hand, and Emma let her take it, and they fell asleep like that, tangled together, holding on. Marcus called Victoria at 7 in the morning to tell her about the nightmare. She sounded wrecked, like she'd been up all night imagining worst-case scenarios. "I knew this would happen. The upheaval, the changes, it's too much for her anxiety." She got through it, and Em helped. They're okay. For now. But what happens when the lawyers get involved? When my family finds out and starts making demands? When the trust fund stipulations kick in and complicate custody? Marcus felt cold dread settle in his stomach. What lawyers? What family? Victoria's sigh carried the weight of revelations she'd been avoiding. "There are legal complications I haven't told you about. The trust my father left has conditions. If I acknowledge Lily's father and he's deemed unsuitable, the trustees can challenge her inheritance. My uncle has been looking for any excuse to contest the will since Dad died. So this isn't just about us and the girls. It's about money and power and family politics. Welcome to the Ashford legacy, where every choice has a dozen consequences nobody warned you about." The following Tuesday, Marcus got served papers at his workshop. Victoria's uncle, James Ashford, was filing for guardianship review, citing concerns about Marcus's suitability as a parent given his working-class background and lack of resources to maintain Lily's standard of living. Dave found him sitting on the workshop floor, papers scattered around him, too angry to speak. "What's that?" "Rich people trying to take my daughter away because I'm not rich enough to deserve her." Dave picked up one of the legal documents, squinting at the dense legal language. "You gonna fight?" "With what? I can barely afford a decent lawyer, let alone the kind Victoria's family probably has on retainer." "So you roll over? Let them win because they have deeper pockets?" Marcus looked at his employee, friend, surrogate uncle, who'd known him since he was Emma's age, and his father was still teaching him which end of a hammer to hold. "What am I supposed to do?" "Same thing your dad would do. Stand up and fight for what's yours. Your girl needs you. That's worth more than any trust fund. Victoria called that night, furious in a way he'd never heard. I didn't authorize this. My uncle went behind my back, using old family clauses I didn't even know existed. I'm fighting it, Marcus. My lawyers are already drafting responses. Maybe he's right. Maybe Lily deserves better than a workshop and a two-bedroom house. Don't you dare. Don't let him make you doubt yourself. Lily doesn't need a bigger house. She needs you. She needs someone who teaches her to build things and doesn't care if she gets dirty. Someone who bandages her scrapes and lets her fail without judgment. Money can't buy that. Her voice softened. I chose wrong 10 years ago. I chose protecting money over protecting love. I'm not making that mistake again. The legal battle stretched over 6 weeks. Depositions, character witnesses, home inspections that made Marcus acutely aware of every scuff mark and outdated appliance. James Ashford's lawyers painted him as a well-meaning but inadequate father figure. Someone who couldn't provide the educational opportunities and social connections Lily would need to manage her eventual inheritance. Marcus's lawyer, a fierce woman named Patricia Chen, who worked pro bono after hearing his story, built a different case. Testimony from Emma's teachers about Marcus's involved parenting. Dr. Chen's professional opinion that Lily's relationship with Marcus was therapeutic and necessary for her mental health. Character witnesses from neighbors, clients, Father Tony from the church who'd known Marcus since childhood, and Victoria, who spent 3 hours on the stand explaining her choices, defending Marcus's character, and making it crystal clear that she wanted him fully involved in Lily's life, regardless of what her uncle thought about working-class fathers. The judge ruled in Marcus's favor with one condition: DNA testing to legally establish paternity before formal custody arrangements could be finalized. Victoria agreed immediately, and Marcus did too, though the idea of reducing his connection to Lily to a percentage match felt wrong. The results came back 99.97% probability of paternity. The number was meaningless. Marcus had known the truth the second he saw Lily pointing at his tattoo, but it made everything legal and indisputable. James Ashford's objections were dismissed. Formal custody agreements were drafted. Joint legal custody, with Lily spending 40% of her time with Marcus, 60% with Victoria due to school district considerations. Marcus's name was added to Lily's birth certificate 9 years late. She was legally Lily Ashford Donovan now, hyphenated proof that two families could become one through sheer stubborn refusal to give up. Signing the papers in the lawyer's office, Marcus's hand shook. Victoria sat beside him, and when he finished, she squeezed his shoulder. Thank you for not giving up on her. She's my daughter. I don't know how to give up on that. Thanksgiving marked their first holiday as an official, if unconventional, family. Marcus hosted at his house since Victoria's mansion felt too formal, too much like an obligation instead of a celebration. He'd been up since 5 preparing Sarah's traditional menu: turkey, stuffing, green bean casserole, mashed potatoes from scratch. Emma and Lily took over decorating responsibilities with more enthusiasm than skill, resulting in a table runner made from construction, paper leaves, and centerpieces that defied both logic and gravity. Marcus didn't care that it looked like an elementary school craft project. His daughters had made it together, arguing over tape and giggling over inside jokes, and that made it perfect. Victoria arrived at noon with Mrs. Brennan, who'd refused to retire before seeing this situation through to proper resolution. The older woman surveyed the kitchen chaos with her usual stern expression, but Marcus caught her smiling when Emma showed her the place cards Lily had calligraphed. They sat around Marcus's battered kitchen table. 6 people who shouldn't fit together, but did anyway. Before eating, Emma insisted on Sarah's tradition, everyone saying one thing they were grateful for. Emma went first. I'm grateful for my sister, even though she's annoying sometimes. Lily threw a wadded napkin at her, grinning. I'm grateful for my dad, and for Emma teaching me that families can be loud and messy and good. Victoria's voice was thick when she spoke. I'm grateful for second chances, for people who forgive mistakes they had every right to hold against me. Mrs. Brennan surprised everyone. I'm grateful these children finally have what they needed, and for Mr. Donovan, who turned out to be exactly the man I hoped he was. Marcus met the older woman's eyes, seeing approval there that meant more than he'd expected. I'm grateful for all of you, for family that finds each other even when the odds are impossible. The meal was chaotic and perfect. Lily tried to cut her turkey with violin-precise movements and ended up launching a piece across the table. Emma demonstrated the proper method with exaggerated coaching that had everyone laughing. Victoria attempted to help with dishes and proved spectacularly bad at it, breaking a glass and nearly flooding the kitchen. After dinner, the girls disappeared to work on treehouse additions while the adults cleaned. Mrs. Brennan cornered Marcus at the sink. "I'm retiring in 2 weeks. Lily doesn't need a nanny anymore. She needs her family. But before I go, I wanted you to know I've watched you with her. You're patient, kind. You teach instead of demanding. Your late wife would be proud of the father you've become." The unexpected praise hit Marcus hard. He managed to nod his thanks around the lump in his throat. "Take care of my girl, both your girls. Always." December brought Christmas preparations and the revelation that Lily had never decorated a real tree. Victoria's decorator handled their mansion's decor annually, resulting in magazine-perfect displays that looked beautiful and felt sterile. Emma was scandalized and immediately dragged both parents to a tree lot to rectify this travesty. They picked out a 7-foot Douglas fir that shed needles everywhere and refused to stand straight in the stand. Marcus spent an hour adjusting it while the girls directed from the couch, Victoria documenting the whole ridiculous process on her phone. Decorating was warfare disguised as holiday cheer. Emma had strong opinions about ornament placement. Lily wanted everything symmetrical and color coordinated. They argued about tinsel, about whether bubble lights were tacky or classic, about the proper angel-to-star ratio for tree toppers. Marcus and Victoria sat back and let them fight it out, intervening only when voices got too loud. Watching them negotiate and compromise and occasionally resort to ornament theft was better than any Hallmark movie. The finished tree looked like chaos incarnate. Ornaments clustered in random groups, tinsel applied with more enthusiasm than skill, lights blinking in patterns that might induce seizures. It was the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever seen because his daughters had made it together. Christmas morning, Emma woke Lily at 6 by jumping on the guest bed where she'd slept over. Victoria arrived at 7 with more presents than 2 kids could possibly need. But Marcus didn't say anything about spoiling them because this was Victoria's first real Christmas with family in almost a decade. They opened gifts in Marcus's living room, wrapping paper carnage spreading across every surface. Lily gave Emma a friendship bracelet she'd made in secret, each bead carefully chosen to match Emma's favorite colors. Emma gave Lily a carved wooden box Marcus had helped her make, with a phoenix burned into the lid. "For your treasures. Dad showed me how to do the design. It's like our tattoos, sort of." Lily traced the phoenix with one finger, tears streaming down her face. "It's perfect. I love it." Marcus gave both girls matching tool belts, child-sized but real leather with actual tools. Emma shrieked with delight. Lily looked confused until he explained. "You're both apprentice carpenters now, official members of Donovan Woodworking. These are your starter kits." The pride on Lily's face was everything. Victoria had bought him an expensive watch he'd never wear, but the card with it said, "Thank you for teaching our daughter that her hands can build things, not just spend money." That meant more than any gift. The treehouse reached completion in early January during an unseasonably warm weekend. Marcus had been working on it for 6 months, but the final touches, railings, roof, the pulley system for supplies, were done with both girls helping every step. They carved their initials into the main support beam, MD, ED, LAD. Marcus added the date and the words Donovan and Daughters. Both girls insisted on Victoria adding her initials too, so VA joined the others in permanent ink. The christening ceremony involved hot chocolate and thermoses and a sign Emma and Lily had painted, "Castle Donovan, sisters only, Dad allowed sometimes." They hung it above the entrance and declared the structure officially open. That night, despite January cold, both girls insisted on sleeping in the treehouse. Marcus set them up with heated sleeping bags and walkie-talkies linked to the house in case of emergency. He and Victoria sat on the back porch with coffee and blankets, watching lights glow in the treehouse windows. "I'm moving the foundation offices here, opening a branch in town." Victoria's announcement was casual, but Marcus heard the weight behind it. "You're leaving New York?" Lily needs her dad close. I need to be where Lily is. The foundation can operate from anywhere. Turns out I don't need Manhattan to prove I'm more than my trust fund. She turned to look at him in the porch light. I spent 9 years building walls and protecting money and trying to control everything. Time to try something different. Build something real instead of just managing inheritance. Marcus thought about what that meant. Victoria nearby, permanent instead of visiting. Their daughters able to transition between homes without long drives and complicated schedules. It'll be strange, seeing you regularly after a decade of nothing. Strange doesn't mean bad. We're doing pretty well at this co-parenting thing. Maybe we can do friendship too. It wasn't romance. That ship had sailed and sunk years ago, but it was partnership forged in the trenches of shared parenting, mutual mistakes, and the recognition that they'd created something beautiful despite doing almost everything wrong. Yeah, I think we can. In the treehouse above them, Emma and Lily talked in the darkness, their voices carrying on cold air. Do you think about how weird this is? That we didn't know each other 6 months ago and now we're sisters? Sometimes, but good weird, like finding something you didn't know you lost. That's deep, Lily. I've been practicing deep. Emma? Yeah? Thanks for not hating me. When you found out, you could have made this really hard. I did make it hard. For like 2 weeks, I was a total brat about it. But you stopped. You gave me a chance. Silence for a moment, then Emma's voice, smaller. I was scared Dad would forget about me, that you'd be better than me at everything and he wouldn't need me anymore. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You're Emma. You're the one who knows all his stories and makes him laugh and taught him how to be a dad after your mom died. I'm just catching up. More silence than rustling as they shifted in sleeping bags. Lily? Yeah? I'm glad you're my sister. Me too. Marcus and Victoria heard it all through the open walkie-talkie. Victoria wiped her eyes, not bothering to hide tears. We did something right. Finally. They did it. We just stopped screwing up long enough to let them. Mrs. Brennan's retirement party was the following week. Lily insisted on hosting at Marcus's house instead of Victoria's mansion, and the older woman seemed genuinely touched by the gesture. She arrived to find both girls had made her cards, Marcus had baked a cake, and Victoria had framed a photo of Mrs. Brennan with the baby Lily from 9 years ago. Before she left for the last time, Mrs. Brennan pulled Marcus aside and handed him a wooden box. I've been saving these. Thought you should have them. Inside were photos she'd taken over the years. Lily at various ages looking at families with fathers. At the playground, watching a man push his daughter on a swing. At a violin recital, scanning the audience for someone who wasn't there. At age 6, drawing a picture of a phoenix that she'd never shown anyone. At the bottom, a note in Mrs. Brennan's careful handwriting. She was always looking for you. I'm glad she found you. Marcus's vision blurred. He managed to thank her before his voice gave out completely. She patted his shoulder with rare affection. You're a good man, Mr. Donovan. Better than most who were born to wealth and position. Your daughters are lucky to have you. After she left, Marcus called Victoria to tell her about the photos. She came over within the hour, and they sat together looking through them. Evidence of 9 years of Lily searching for a father who didn't know she existed. We can't ever keep secrets from them again. Victoria's voice was fierce with conviction. Never again, I promise. Whatever happens, whatever complications come up, we tell them the truth. Even when it's hard, especially then. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd loved each other badly once, learning to be family in the wreckage of their past. 1 year after the hardware store meeting, Marcus stood in that same aisle with both daughters, buying supplies for the garden shed they'd decided to build next. Emma and Lily walked ahead, arguing about whether they needed more nails or if Dad's estimate was accurate. Lily turned back, her voice carrying. Dad, Emma says we're overbuying, but I calculated the surface area and we definitely need 3 more boxes. Emma rolled her eyes. She calculated wrong. Dad's estimate is always right. Is not. Is too. Marcus smiled, watching them bicker with the comfortable familiarity of siblings who'd forgotten they hadn't always known each other. A woman passed with a small child, doing a double take at the identical mannerisms, the way both girls tilted their heads when arguing, the stubborn set of their jaws. the hand gestures that were pure Marcus. Are they twins? Emma and Lily looked at each other and burst out laughing. No, we're just sisters. We have the same dad but different moms. It's complicated, but good complicated. The woman looked confused but smiled politely before moving on. Marcus joined his daughters, putting a hand on each shoulder. So how many boxes of nails do we actually need? 3 more. Dad's original estimate. How about we compromise and get 2 more? Both girls groaned at the dad logic but agreed. At the register, Lily pulled out money from her allowance, her idea wanting to contribute to family projects instead of just letting Dad pay for everything. Emma matched her dollar for dollar, competitive even about generosity. They loaded supplies into Marcus's truck, now upgraded from the old beater to something slightly less likely to break down, though still thoroughly working class compared to Victoria's Mercedes. Lily climbed in front, Emma behind her, both fighting over radio control. Driving home, Marcus caught sight of his Phoenix tattoo on the steering wheel. Across town, Victoria had the same design on her shoulder, hidden under professional clothes, but there nonetheless. 2 phoenixes who'd learned to fly together, crashed, burned, and somehow found their way back to something better than what they'd lost. That evening, Victoria came for dinner, a regular occurrence now that she'd moved the foundation offices to a renovated building 3 blocks from Marcus's workshop. She'd bought a house on the other side of town. Nothing like the Manhattan mansion, but still nice enough to make Marcus's place look humble by comparison. But Lily preferred eating at Dad's house because it meant helping cook instead of watching someone else do it. She and Emma made spaghetti while Marcus supervised, Victoria setting the table and marveling at how domestic her life had become. They ate together, all 4 of them, trading stories about their days. Emma described a project at school. Lily talked about her violin teacher pushing her toward competition she wasn't sure she wanted. Victoria mentioned a foundation grant she was excited about. Marcus showed them photos of a custom bookshelf commission that would pay for Christmas gifts. After dinner, the girls disappeared to do homework, while Marcus and Victoria handled cleanup. They developed a rhythm. She washed, he dried, both comfortable in silence that used to be awkward, but was now just peaceful. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd told you from the beginning? Victoria asked it quietly, not looking up from the dish she was scrubbing. Marcus thought about alternate timelines, the ones where he'd known about Lily from birth, where maybe he'd never married Sarah, where Emma might not exist. None of those versions felt right. I think we got here the long way around, made a mess, hurt each other, probably traumatized our kids in ways they'll unpack in therapy someday. Victoria laughed despite herself. But we're here now. Both girls are happy. They have each other. We're figuring it out. Maybe that's enough. You really think so? That all the pain and mistakes were worth it? Marcus looked toward the living room where his daughters sat shoulder to shoulder, Lily helping Emma with math homework, while Emma translated word problems into concepts Lily's formal education had somehow missed. Ask me in 10 years. But right now, yeah, I think it was worth it. In the living room, I leaned over to read Lily's work. You did the equation wrong. You forgot to carry the 1. Did not. Did 2. Look, right there. Lily checked, realized Emma was right, and groaned. How are you better at math than me? You don't even like math. I have natural talent, unlike some people who just study a lot. Take that back. Make me. Marcus and Victoria heard the escalating argument that would probably end in someone throwing a pillow. They exchanged glances, neither moving to intervene. Some battles sisters needed to fight themselves. Later, after Victoria went home and both girls were in bed, Marcus stood in his workshop finishing the small carved phoenix he'd started months ago. He'd made 3, 1 for Emma, 1 for Lily, 1 for himself. Trinkets that wouldn't change anything but meant everything, physical proof that broken things could be made whole through patience and care. He set them on his workbench, 3 phoenixes with wings spread, ready to fly. Emma's was cherry wood, warm and familiar. Lily's was walnut, rich and deep. His was oak, solid and weathered. Different materials, same design, stronger together than apart. A year ago, he'd been a widower raising 1 daughter alone, convinced his capacity for love had been depleted by loss. Now he had 2 daughters who bickered over bathroom time and fought over who got shotgun in his truck. He had an ex-girlfriend turned co-parent who'd become something like a friend. He had a life that didn't look anything like what he'd planned, but felt more complete than he'd imagined possible. Some families are born, some are made, and some are torn apart and reassembled by sheer stubborn refusal to give up. By children brave enough to point at truth when they see it, by the recognition that love doesn't divide, it multiplies, making room for everyone who needs a place to belong. Marcus Donovan, carpenter and father, traced the phoenix on his wrist one more time. Then he turned off the workshop lights and went inside to the house where his daughter slept, where tomorrow they'd wake up and fight over breakfast and build something new together. The phoenix had learned to fly again. All of them had, and this time they'd fly together.